Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. This is hopefully a very short reminder about the Night of Qadr. Quickly, just to appreciate this night, why do we call it the Night of Qadr? Well, there are two reasons. One is because there's some taqdeer that happens in this night. So there is some taqdeer, which means that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala decrees what's going to happen for the coming year. And this is actually mentioned in the Quran. It is mentioned in fact in Surah Al-Dukhan. And a lot of people may not know that Surah Al-Dukhan talks about Laylatul Qadr, but it does. So in the beginning, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, إِنَّا أَنزَلْنَاهُ فِي لَيْلَةٍ مُبَارَكَةٍ. We have revealed the Quran in a blessed night. So obviously, he's talking about the night of Qadr, right? And this is a similar structure that you see also in Surah Al-Qadr itself. إِنَّا أَنزَلْنَاهُ فِي لَيْلَةِ الْقَدْرِ. We have revealed it in the night of Qadr. Anyways, in Surah Al-Dukhan, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions also a little bit about what happens. So he said, فِيهَا يُفْرَقُ كُلُّ أَمْرٍ حَكِيمٍ. In that night, every wise matter is decreed. Okay? So you see in that verse, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says clearly that every wise matter will be decreed in that night. So that's one reason we call it the night of Qadr. It is from taqdeer, which means to decree or to decide what's going to happen in the coming year. And by the way, I don't necessarily like the translation, the night of power. You can translate it like that. It's not a big deal. But if you want to, be strict in the translation, one meaning is taqdeer, which is decree, and the fact that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala determines what's going to happen. And the other meaning is from qadr, meaning status and importance. So somebody dhu qadr, we say, means somebody who is important, somebody who has value. Likewise, because this night has lots of value, and this is actually reflected in Surah Al-Qadr. So in Surah Al-Qadr, from beginning to end, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala talks about the importance and the value of that night. So for example, he said, وَمَا أَدْرَاكَ مَا لَيْلَةُ الْقَدْرِ. And when you use this structure in Arabic and you say, وَمَا أَدْرَاكَ, like, can you even imagine? Do you even realize how important this night is? So that's what the Quran is trying to convey here. And that conveys, no doubt, it conveys the importance and the status of that night. All right. And also later in that same surah, where it says Laylatul Qadr khayrun min alfi shahr, that this night is more valuable or better than 1,000 months. So that also shows us the value not of the night itself, but also of the worship done in that night. Okay. So for example, if you did some worship, you did some prayer or dhikr or recitation of the Quran. So let's say you recite the Quran in that night, it's equivalent to reciting Quran for 1,000 months. So you can imagine the amount of multiplication that happens in that night. Okay? And this is not something to be taken lightly. So these are the two basic meanings of Qadr. One is about taqdeer, which means decree and what's going to happen in the coming year. And the second is about value and status, and not just the value of the night itself, but also the value of worship in that night. All right. Now, of course, some people might say, well, we don't know for sure that tonight is going to be the night of Qadr. And that is true, but it is the most likely scenario. If you look at all the hadith, don't just grab one hadith or two. If you look at the totality of the hadith narrated about Laylatul Qadr, the night of Qadr, you're going to see that it's all about probabilities. So yes, it is true that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala did not designate, did not point out just one night, because we have one hadith that says it's going to be in the last 10, and in the other hadith it says in the odd nights of the last 10, and then another hadith that says on the 27th night. So the way you can reconciliate, the way you can sum up all of these narrations is to say that yes, it is likely to happen in all of the last 10. It is more likely to happen in the odd nights of the last 10, and is even more likely to happen, and the highest probability is on the 27th night of Ramadan. which is inshallah tonight. So this is why it is important to try and even if you did not do enough in the last nights of Ramadan, now it is time to try and try harder. So don't say, well, I was not able to pray in the last 5 nights. Don't worry about that. Just focus on this night and do as much as you can, right? Because even, like I said, a small action could be multiplied so much. I also want to address another problem that some people go through. Because I'm not just talking to people who are religious per se, right? On the 27th, you see people from all walks of life, people maybe who have not entered the masjid, who come and pray, which is something good. I think we should encourage it so that these people will come more often, and not like mock them or make fun of them and say, oh, look, they only come on the 27th night. I mean, it might be true, but this is not how we solve it. It's a good sign that at least they thought of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala on that night, that remembered the masjid, or now there's no masjid, they remembered worship in that night. That's a good sign, and we should encourage it, and inshallah next time they'll do it more often. But some people might have this attitude. They say, well, you know what, whatever I do, I don't feel anything in my heart. I don't feel the sweetness of worship, for example. And as a result, there's no use for me, there's no hope for me. So what they do, they just quit on everything. And they say, it's hopeless, it's useless, and why do I even try? And that's a big door of shaitan. I just want to say that because we don't know, we have no idea when the mercy of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will descend upon us. We have no idea. Maybe on that night, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will look at you, and you will be, as we say, in the zone. You will feel it. You will feel the connection. You will feel the closeness to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So we should not be the judges. And that's really the wrong approach, to play that with ourselves. To say, well, I don't feel anything, so I'm not going to do anything. And I think part of it is because we think it is us who should drive it. No, our job is to try and worship Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala as much as we can. But it is not up to us to dictate or determine when these good moments will happen to us. This is totally up to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So that's why I want to mention that, so that you don't lose hope. You actually should approach the night with hope, basically. More than anything else in this night, you should approach it with lots and lots of hope. That Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will forgive me, that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will look at me, that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will look at me with the eye of mercy. All of that should be with you tonight, inshallah. So, like I said, I was not going to take a lot of time. Just a quick reminder that please take advantage of this night as much as possible, and do your best. And don't say, well, I'm busy, or I am working tomorrow. Even if you cannot take the whole night, take part of the night. This is still better than nothing. Because the Prophet ﷺ told us in the hadith, "Man hurima khayraha faqad hurim." If you lose the virtue of this night, if you lose the importance of this or the worship in this night, then you are indeed a loser. So we don't want to be losers, right? And you don't want to be deprived. That's how the Prophet said it. You're going to be labeled as deprived. So we don't want to be in that category. We don't want to be in this group. So try as much as you can, inshallah, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is behind every success. Jazakumullah khair. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.